G'day, how's it going? Mr. Fitz here. Hope you're going well. Welcome to another Dirty Fitz production. In this tutorial, we're going to run through the idea of modifying an existing model and introducing you guys to the Fillet and the Chamfer tool that are very, very useful tools for shaping your models. Let's get into it. One of the biggest pluses about parametric modeling programs, so SolidWorks, OnShape and others, is that not only can we generate lots of cool shapes and models, but we can go back and edit them. So that's one of the key things of what is parametric, is that we can go back and we can change what we've created. 100% your designs will always change. You might make a mistake and want to correct it, but we want to go back through the process. So from our workflow, once you've created a sketch and built your solids, you want to go back in and be able to edit your sketches and edit your features. And in this video, we're going to introduce to you fillets and chamfers, which is a separate tool that we can do once we have a solid that we can modify. Today's tutorial, we're going to generate this model. So the isometric view, it's essentially a bit of an L-shaped part with a pocket that's cut out of it. Now, we're going to generate this from an existing tutorial. So this one here below was one of the tutorial examples in a previous chapter, and it's very similar to what we're trying to build. So we're going to modify this design to match what we're trying to build here. So we started with this, but the client's come back and they've wanted to change the design. So we're going to go ahead and modify it. Let's get into it. So load up your earlier model. So the first thing to take note of is you guys should be well aware now that as you build your model, on the left-hand side here is our feature tree, and we can go back and we can see how this model was generated. Now, the very first thing we did in this model was we sketched this side profile, then we extruded it, then we created another sketch on this face, and then we extruded and cut it away. So to build our design, what we're going to do is we're going to modify the existing. So if we right click on our original sketch or double click it, you can also click on the extrude, and that should allow you to edit the sketch, which is what formed the main model. We can go in and change it. So basic L shape. Now from our drawing, we want the overall part length. It's actually going to be 25 and 25 from here, so it's not dimension on there, but it's going to be 50 millimeters overall. The 20 stays the same, and this 10 over here remains the same as well. So this is going to be 25. So I could just click on that text box and change it. 25, the 60, double click, make that 25. Whoops, sorry, that needs to be 50. Apologies. So that there's 25 and that's 25, and the 10 and the 20 remain the same. Now to OK that, click on the tick, and you'll see that the model is updated. Now it looks a bit funky because the next feature cuts deeper into the part, so we've still got some work to do. So now I'm going to modify this sketch. So if I right click and go edit sketch on my second feature, this was the original pocket. Now the pocket we're trying to build is going to be 10 millimeters wide across this way and 20 millimeters deep. Now for the moment, let's just forget about these curves or these fillets. We're going to add those in later. So let's just try and focus on keeping our sketches simple. Just one of the really important parts about modeling is it's key to keep your sketches as basic as you can, and then we can add back in some features later. So the depth of this pocket is going to be 25 millimeters there, and the pocket width is going to be 10. Now the problem we've got here is that this is currently pinned to this corner, and we don't want that to be the case. Sorry, my mistake. The pocket is 20, not 25, so it comes in 5 from the end. As I said, this is pinned to the corner here. Now, if you click on that point there, you can actually hover over these constraints that were applied at an earlier time. This first one here looks like it's pinned to the corner. If I delete that, you'll see that this now becomes blue. So I've removed that point being stuck in the corner there. So the whole thing now is blue, which enables me to move it. That's useful. Now I'm going to move this over towards the center, which is where it's positioned. So I'm going to now pin it, this point back to this line. And you can see that this line and this line now become black, so it's constrained in that direction, but I can still shift this along the line. Now if I go back to my model, there is a dimension here of 10 millimeters from this edge to the pocket. So let's add in a dimension from here to here, click and make that one 10, and that now centers it. There are other ways you can center it as well. You might find a way to draw a line through the middle of the part as a reference dimension or reference line, sorry, and pin it to there. But we might cover that in a later lesson of some more advanced sketch features. So that looks fine. That's the pocket I want. And let's go OK to that. And it will update that automatically. Now, that original feature, that extrude, cuts through the whole part. Now, our design here, we only want that pocket to go down 5 millimeters. So what we need to actually modify here next is going to be not the sketch, but the actual feature of the extrude. So if I right click extrude and go edit, we can have a look. So this extrude is going to remove, which is what I want, is going to cut. Now currently the constraint here is that it goes through all, which means that that will just continue cutting through anything that's in the way. So if I click on this end type and change it to blind, blind is a technical term for a hole or a pocket that has a set depth. So the depth I want this to be is 5, not 25. So click 5 and click OK. Now we have it, a 5 mil pocket. All right, so that is the general shape of my part. Next thing I want to create is this angled cut here. Now that could be added to the sketch if that's formed that, but I'm going to show you a tool that will do that automatically. Then I need to also add in these fillets on the outside of my part. So the first tool that we're going to use is called the Chamfer tool. You'll find that up here. There's the two we're going to use today is chamfer and fillet. And as always, these icons try to show you graphically what the feature does. So this one here, you can see it's a little cut on a corner. So click on the chamfer. Now there's a few options under here. You can do an equal distance chamfer, two distances, distance and angle. The simplest type is equal distance. So that's going to mean that it's going to cut whatever you specify in both directions. So I'll give you an example. If I click on this edge, it's going to create a 5 millimeter, so 5 mil this way and 5 mil this way. It's going to cut it away from that edge. So what I actually want on my model, it isn't actually constrained here. The drawing takes you to this front view. So a 10 millimeter by 45 degrees. So by default, if I cut 10 and 10, it'll give me a 45-degree cut. So if I change that to 10 and click OK, that'll cut away that edge. Beautiful. That forms a feature over here that is editable after. So right click, edit, you can change the size of it. That's how we create square edges. Next one is a fillet. You'll use fillets a lot. I generally recommend that when you're doing a sketch, try to avoid putting fillets in a sketch. You can create arcs in sketches, but I like to add these to the solid model afterwards. They're a lot easier to use. Now, the fillets we want to add, so from the drawing, I'm going to do these outside curves here. So R5, so radius 5 millimeter. TYP means typical, which means that it's common in a few areas. So that and that are going to be 5. So I'm going to click here and here in the same feature, 5 millimeters. Now I'm just going to go OK to that because they're both the same, and that's going to create that over here as a fillet. That looks good. Now the other one I'm going to add in here is there's a 5 mil fillet inside here. Now because this is 10 mil wide, if I put a fillet in these two corners, it should give me a continuous curve, as you can see in this top view of that feature. So I'm going to go back to fillet. Now I'm going to click that corner and that corner there. And you can see the preview is going to give me a continuous curve there. That's what I want. And click on the tick. Cool. That is the model. So if that's what yours looks like, then you're on the right track. The fillet tool is really powerful. You can create a range, as with the fillet, there's a range of other types. So you can create um, fillets that have variable radius. This little tick box here is called tangent propagation. We'll go through that in a later tutorial, but when you're creating more complex fillets, you can use that to pick up other edges. Be careful with this tool. Sometimes students have trouble just trying to work out which edge to tick. So if I click on this edge, for instance, a quick little example there is that tangent propagation means that it's going to pick up not only this edge, but it's going to grab the next edges next to it. These are tangent edges. If I untick that, it'll just fill it across that way. And I can change the size of that. So some useful things there in that tool. As I said, really, really useful. I use this a lot, and it's a nice way to sort of shape your model and take off the sharp edges, which are often undesirable in a design. All right, so in summary, we have modified this original design to create this. We've added in a chamfer and some fillets to round our part. Really useful tools. I suggest having a go at this tutorial. If you haven't modeled this one before, maybe model this one first and then modify it to match this one. So we've sketched, we've created some solids and we've modified them, and then we've gone back and we've changed it. Good stuff, folks. All the best with your CAD. Take it easy.